Hey everyone, welcome to another beautiful day. My name, of course, is Dr. Julie Two Moon, and I wanted to jump in here today because I had a conversation with someone the other day that really opened my eyes even further to how much so many women are going through. So I was talking to one of the members in the program, and she was speaking about how she'd gone out with, some other couples, she and her husband, and they'd gone to a like a food tasting type event, and the other women were like her in their 50s and were sitting talking, and the story was repeatedly the same. I mean, it was, I'm so tired, I don't feel well, I'm not happy with my body, my mind is foggy, I'm not sleeping, I don't have a libido, I just don't feel well. And they were all talking about how, so many of them were saying like, oh yeah, I went to see this doc and they've put me on this 600 calorie a day diet. And then the other one, oh, I've cut out all these foods. Oh, I'm doing keto. Oh, I'm doing this other really restrictive plan. And it was just time after time after time of these women talking about how they had adopted plans that they, weren't enjoying. They weren't happy. It wasn't like, oh, I love the food I get to eat. I mean, it was all like, I'm just cutting and cutting and cutting and cutting. And it was all of this restriction. And they were all just kind of crossing their fingers and hoping that it was going to work. And she said she sat back and she was like, oh my God, because the way that when I work with women, it's about learning to really love and appreciate our body, really learning to feed ourselves in a way that is compatible with our biology, and then learning to understand what that means, and then learning to check it and learning to verify and partner with our body. And she said she just sat there thinking like, oh my God, I'm so glad that's not me. Like that would be me if I weren't doing this. And so I wanted to jump in and talk about dieting because I think dieting is one of the worst things that we've done to ourselves as humans, and it's for a lot of reasons. But here's what I find especially true is that I talk to so many women who have spent their life trying to rein in their body. Now, some have not, some were great until they hit, some kind of shift or change, 40, 45, 50-ish, and then things started to shift. And what happens is we go immediately to like, let me cut out more things, let me cut. And so then we're left eating diets filled with foods that like we're okay with, but we don't really love. And so we're not looking forward to any of our meals. And the thing is that we're doing this from a short-sighted perspective, because we're doing it from a like, I will adopt this way of functioning until I get some change, and then I do expect to go back to my norm. And the fact is that the norm was part of the problem, not meaning like you were eating too many foods. The odds are you just never were taught how to feed your body according to the needs of your biology. Now here's some facts. So your cells prefer to run on glucose and fructose, and they have a very good reason for that, because when they run on glucose and fructose, they can make 30 units of ATP, the base units of energy, in every single cell for every molecule that they run through. How cool is that? Now, if we run on a stress-based metabolism, which here's what happens. The minute you start cutting foods, you start cutting your calories really low, you start being really restrictive, your body sees it as a stress. So you've just added one more metabolic stress. Now what happens under stress is our body says, screw that, we're not using glucose and fructose, because that is the metabolism of a happy, healthy, safe individual. But stress is not a sensation of being safe. So our body shoves our system into stress-based metabolism. That means it is going to use fats and protein as its primary energy source. Now you may be thinking like, oh, that's why, low carb is so great, except for the fact that that is a very inefficient energy system. It was designed for survival purposes only. It's a lot like, running a generator can totally power your house, but it's not very efficient, which is why we don't use it as our primary energy source. We hook up to other sources that are more consistent and use a lot less power and a lot less gasoline, a lot less resources, and produces a better outcome. It's the same thing in our cells. So the minute that you start cutting, you add more stress, your body actually drops into a lower metabolic state, right? That's like the opposite, I think, of what you wanted. So if we're talking energy production, you've just done two things. For a little while, you're going to get a boost because adrenaline feels really good. That's why we all like it so much. So you're going to start to feel like, oh my God, my energy's coming back. This is so great. It's such a clean burn. I'm barely eating anything. It's awesome. Until it crashes, and it will crash. And if it doesn't crash in terms of energy, it'll crash in a way that means chronic pain, digestive problems, even cancer. Those are all outcomes of that stress state. Now, on top of that, now you've also just lowered your cell energy potential. So what's going to happen is that if you then go back and try to increase your food, you're going to notice your body doesn't tolerate it so well. And that is a huge consequence I see all the time. And so what's going to happen if you find yourself where you can only tolerate like 1,000 calories a day, or you watch your body start to put on weight? Because that's what I see happen to women all the time who've been dieting their whole life. So their body adapts to an extremely low energy state. Now here's another truth. Low energy states are rapid aging states. So if you want to maintain a youthful perspective, both mind, body, emotion, spirit, the key is to not cut yourself into a zero state of being fed, because it is so incredibly age proliferating to go there. Your cells get rigid in that low energy state. Think about aging, right? It's lack of elasticity, lack of strength, lack of energy, lack of flexibility. Those are all the states that your cells go to as soon as you go into a low energy state. That's why we have to avoid that state by being well fed, by being rested. Now, my client was saying how so many of these women were saying that they weren't happy doing this either. Guess what? Happiness is another key feature of living a long, vital, vibrant life. If you're not happy, then your poor cells are being bombarded, not only now with restrictive eating patterns, but now with low energy, low vibration, angry, frustrated states. Guys, that's not the state of vitality. You should be bubbling up from the inside with joy and excitement and creativity. Now, part of how we get there is through the biology, because of course, the more energy your cells make, the more likely that is how you're going to feel in your emotions and your spirit. But there's another part to it, is that we also need to really be excited to be us. And our inner conversation needs to be awesome. So let me ask you, when you pass a mirror, do you go, oh God, you know, my chin, oh, like my cheek? Do you do that? Do you look at your body and think, oh, why? Or do you stop in front of the mirror and go, oh, you look gorgeous today. Like, you look amazing. Look at you. Your eyes are shining. Your skin looks great. You look so amazing. Which one do you do? And I ask because the messages that we tell ourselves every single day, they matter, you guys. They matter big time. And we can do all kinds of great things with our biology, but if we're not partnering with our cells and the messages we send them and how we're using our mind and our thoughts and questions that we ask ourselves and changing our state, then we aren't going to get to where we want to be, and vice versa. You could walk in front of that mirror every single day and be like, oh, you look amazing. But then if you're underfeeding yourself, if you're being rigid and restrictive with food, if you're not getting the right nutrients, your poor cells are going to be like, oh, that does feel better, but I still don't have the energy to respond because my thyroid hormones aren't functioning, or, you know, my adrenals are taxed, my gut is inflamed. They all matter. That's the whole point of this whole conversation, is, you guys, it all matters. And when we go into dieting mode, we might as well call it, you know, super restrictive, I am choosing not to love myself mode. And the thing is that most of us, you know, I get it, right? We think, well, if I'm seeing weight gain and I don't like it, then I must be doing something wrong. And the fact is that the opposite might be true, is that you might be so undernourishing yourself and so underfeeding your body that your body's now trying to protect you from what it sees as a really dire outcome. That's on one hand. And on the other hand, you guys, you might be in a hyper stress state and you've never left it. And the truth is that I see this happen all the time, is that we don't treat women with deference to the amount of stress that we take on. We aren't even considering those kind of factors. And sadly, most of the time, even when you go see like a natural medicine doc, they are still working at the surface. That's why they're cutting so many foods. That's why they're getting so restrictive with your diet. That's why they're pounding in the supplements in such large amounts, because they're really trying to just force your biology to behave. And that is not the way we treat a divine structure like our beautiful body. I mean, you guys, you have the template given to you by the force of all creation. Healing is about repartnering with that. It's about stimulating it. So if you're, like those women that I was talking about at the beginning, and you're sitting there frustrated and thinking, oh my God, this cannot be the way life looks at 50, at 55. You guys, it's a call to action to embrace your brilliance, because I think that's really what's missing. It's let's partner with our biology. Let's stop dieting. My God, like when we're in our 50s, let's stop dieting. Let's start crafting a relationship with our body that is one that is meant to flourish. Let's feed ourselves. Let's actually become in love with great food. Let's actually learn how to rest and say no and say yes too, right? And actually find joy and passion. These are the tools. So I want you to sit and I want you to really think, have I been spending too much of my time trying to cut things from my diet, from what I eat, labeling so many foods as bad? And if that's the case, the first commitment I want you to make is to stop doing that. I want you to stop placing labels on food. All food is energy. And maybe you do have to admit to yourself, yeah, I don't know how to nourish my biology. So if that's the case, great, set up a call, because that's one of the big things that I teach, and that's not something I can teach in a little short video here. Now, I also want you to ask yourself, how much time do I spend giving my body negative images? Meaning, are you self-commenting on how you look when you get dressed in the morning, when you're in the shower, when you pass a mirror, when you're laying in bed, when you're getting up, when you're sitting down, if you're sitting in a meeting, are you thinking about your belly, your thighs? Like, are you doing that to yourself? And are you doing it in the negative? Because this is huge. The more that you craft a negative image of yourself, your body goes, oh, well, that's what she wants. I mean, that's all she ever thinks about, is how negative it is, how awful it is, how much pain we're in. So I want you to start to change your focus. I want you to start to congratulate and appreciate your body every single moment of every single day, and start to give yourself different messages. Now, you may also have to admit, oh, there's some work to do there, and it looks like I need some help with that too, because there's a lot of mind trash that's proliferating. That's also something that I help women do when we work through both sides of this, the biology and the mind, emotion, spirit piece. But I want you to check in with yourself and ask yourself. And I want you to check in with yourself on a couple other things too. When you go exercise, do you do it because you're hoping that you'll burn a bunch of calories, or that your tummy will look flatter, or that your arms will get skinnier, or that skin will stop flapping? Because if that's your motivation, again, it's a negative message. You're not moving out of love and compassion and joy and appreciation. You're moving out of duress. You guys, if you're moving out of duress, and that is the only thing that you think is keeping you from descending into just all out what you perceive to be awfulness, you're in a lose-lose situation. I want you to immediately ask yourself, what movement would light me up, make me feel joyful, would make me feel appreciative in my body, would make me feel alive? And I want you to pick only that movement. I don't want you to pick the other movements because you think they're going to tighten and tone. Here's a little secret. You actually can't spot tone anything in your body. It's impossible. So the reality is that when we move from a conscious place of joy and love and appreciation, things change and they get stronger, and we really truly can have much more of a joyful experience inside of our body. And the last thing I want you to do is also, I want you to start to feel your body and imagine all the years that it served you, and just sit sometime and have an appreciation for that. Now, you may be like a lot of women, like the woman I was talking about who's in the program, who's finding, oh my gosh, all of these lessons I was never taught, and I never learned how to nourish my biology, and I never learned how to partner with it. Well, then reach out, because the truth is that life is really short, and you are living in a divine structure, and the divine is begging to express itself through you. But I will tell you that if you're existing in exhaustion and trying to strong arm your biology into submission, and trying to cut and be more and more restrictive and more limiting with your cells and systems, then what you're doing is you're also handcuffing the power of the divine from being able to express itself fully into all the beauty and joy and creativity and wonder and healing power inside your body. And it will stay that way. The path of healing is partnership. It's utter and complete partnership. And we all have the capacity to do it. But there is a point where we do go too far, where it's hard to bring that back because we didn't believe in ourselves, we didn't put ourselves first, we didn't decide to follow a different path. So I'm really invoking for you guys, give yourself permission to actually thrive, because it doesn't have to be this uphill battle of arduousness. It can actually be a path of wonder and joy and appreciation and dance and freedom. That's the way it's supposed to be. You're worth it. You guys are all massively, amazingly beautiful. So appreciate yourself along the way too, okay? Blessings, guys.